I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody...
The silence that hung heavy grew heavier when the public realized there was no voice from HYBE as Taehyung began to become the target of attacks. The sharp glares, the online whispers that condensed into accusations, and the cynical voices echoed without the shield of those who should have protected him. He was left alone, standing in the storm, without the promised umbrella. But it was in that silence that a person's true character was revealed. Taehyung didn't retaliate. He didn't issue a lengthy statement. He didn't vent his anger. He chose the quietest path, the path taken by those who understand that class isn't about reactions, but about calm in the storm. When the public began to wonder where the agency that had been guiding his steps was, Taehyung continued walking without hesitation. He bowed his head, not because he was defeated, but because he knew that looking down to maintain dignity was far more noble than looking up to seek attention. Behind the no longer warm spotlight, he hugged himself. Every insult thrown at him was not met with equal scorn. Taehyung looked at the wound and transformed it into art. He wove pain into expression, letting the public see that what humans need isn't revenge, but forgiveness and maturity. And that's where true elegance is born. No agency stood up to explain, even when his name was marred by unfair opinions. But Taehyung proved that the best protection doesn't come from official statements, but from keeping oneself clean when mud is thrown at him. He chose silence, not out of fear, but because he knew his time would come. Instead of fighting back with sharp words, he responded with accomplishments. He appeared in places where those who insulted him couldn't reach. He appeared with a smile, with a serene expression that betrayed no scars. The public began to understand that this was a class that couldn't be bought. While everyone waited for an emotional reaction, what emerged was calm. While the fire was fueled by those demanding clarification, Taehyung was there with water, cooling burning hearts, calming inflamed souls. He wasn't just silent. He was healing. He was left to walk alone more than once. But strangely, every time he walked alone, he went further. He didn't just survive. He grew. And in that painful silence, the public began to realize, maybe it wasn't HYBE that made him great. Maybe he was the one who gave that name its light. Taehyung didn't complain. He didn't utter a single sentence of blame. He simply painted more beautifully. He sang more deeply. He smiled more warmly. He became someone who made pain seem worthwhile, because from it, a purer love was born. Fans watched all this with torn hearts. They were angry, they were disappointed, but they still believed. Because amidst the silence of the institution, they could still hear the soft voice of a heart that remained steadfast. And that voice belonged to Taehyung. He wasn't just a victim in this story. He became the author. He rewrote how one should face injustice. He didn't retaliate in kind. He leveled up, and from that height, all attacks no longer reached him. Every step he took seemed to say, I know who I am. He didn't need to prove anything, because everyone already knew. Even those who attacked him knew, but they couldn't accept that he remained unwavering. Because nothing hurts a hater more than seeing their target continue to shine. While HYBE remained silent, their silence only served to elevate Taehyung's voice. The world watched, the world took note. When a system remains silent in the face of injustice, those who remain unaided become greater than the system itself. And Taehyung now stood there, bigger, calmer, more respected. He wasn't an idol demanding sympathy. He was a human being who invited empathy. He wasn't an actor in a media-created drama, but a real character in an honest narrative. And this narrative wasn't about the failure of the system, but about the success of individuals who remain whole despite being abandoned. The public, once mere spectators, had now become advocates. They spoke out, they wrote, they painted, and they created for him. Because they saw his sincerity. Because they couldn't bear to see a man with such a beautiful soul treated so unfairly. And Taehyung, as always, didn't ask for any of it. He accepted it calmly. She embraced the love that came with the same silence she endured the abuse. She didn't choose to use her suffering as a tool. She simply continued to be herself. When the world treated him harshly, he responded with tenderness. When the system ignored him, he proved that he never depended on the system. He was a garden that grew even in dry soil. He was a light that never went out, even when the electricity was turned off. HYBE's silence wasn't just a matter of poor communication. It reflected how they viewed their artists. But the public chose not to forget. Because in that indifference, there was someone who maintained dignity. And that someone was Taehyung. He had weathered the storm without an umbrella. He had walked through the fog without a compass. But he had arrived at a higher place. He didn't need revenge. Because his success was the greatest reward. Now, the public no longer waited for a statement from HYBE. They knew who was right. They saw who remained calm, who inspired, who persevered without attacking. They witnessed with their own eyes that beauty cannot be destroyed by hatred. And Taehyung, like the night sky that remains enchanting even when not all the stars shine, remains a light for many souls. He is proof that true love needs no protection. He stands alone, and the world will come to support him. In this narrative, he is not just a hero without a cape. He is a symbol of serenity, elegance, and resilience. He teaches that not all wounds must be avenged. Sometimes, all we need is the courage to remain kind. In his silence, Taehyung never begs for understanding. He simply continues to give kindness, little by little, like the dew that falls slowly in the morning. Silently, without a spotlight, but capable of soothing the ground parched by harsh weather. He knows that true love doesn't need to be proven, it just needs to be felt. Many ask, why doesn't he fight back? Why doesn't he speak up? But behind his silence, there is a strength that not everyone possesses, complete trust in time, and the belief that the truth will find its own way. He chooses silence not because he is incapable, but because he doesn't want to hurt more hearts. He sees it all. He hears it all. But he chooses to continue doing good. Because Taehyung doesn't live just to defend himself. He lives to love, to create, and to give meaning. He knew that if he responded to all the hate, he would lose the space to spread love. Days passed, and slowly, the world began to see him differently. No longer just as a popular idol, but as a respected individual. Those who had initially doubted him began to understand. Taehyung wasn't a symbol of excitement, he was the epitome of genuine, unforced grace. He walked forward not to leave anyone behind, but to show that we can all be better than the pain we've experienced. He didn't change himself for revenge. Instead, he strengthened himself to be a light for those in darkness. In an industry that often uses dramas as a promotional tool, Taehyung chose a different story. He made silence his stage, and tenderness his dialogue. He didn't seek applause, but his every step was met with silent cheers from those who understood the meaning of silent struggle. When the world thought he had fallen, he began to soar higher. Without wings given by anyone, without encouragement from institutions, he soared above all the noise. He proved that a person can grow greater when they choose to be kind, even in the darkest of times. Many were disappointed to see HYBE remain silent. But even more were amazed to see Taehyung remain human. He didn't drown in anger, didn't turn into a hard man. Instead, he grew softer, more honest, and more touching. He never exploited his suffering as a commodity. He didn't sell his tears. He kept his pain inside, and let people see his smile on the outside. Not because he wanted to appear strong, but because he wanted others to be able to feel happy. And precisely because of that, he became a strength. A figure who didn't rely on the spotlight to shine. He didn't dominate the stage with ego. He filled the space with sincerity. In each step, he held hope for those who had also felt abandoned. Now, those who once insulted him have begun to fall silent. Not because they're afraid, but because they no longer have an excuse. There's no retaliation they can turn into controversy. All they see is one thing: the man keeps walking, and his steps are getting farther. Fans no longer wait for HYBE's defense. They have formed their own line. A line of love, not hate. A line of protection, not resistance. Because they learned from their idols that the best way to fight evil is to continue loving sincerely. And as the world begins to compare who speaks out and who remains silent, they begin to realize, often, in silence lies the loudest cry. A cry from a heart that refuses to respond to hatred with hatred. Taehyung is not perfect. But precisely in his imperfection, he shows the most beautiful side of humanity. He is hurt, but he does not hate. He is attacked, but he does not retaliate. He is abandoned, but he does not turn away from kindness. He is present at a time when people are beginning to lose faith in sincerity. And from his smile, they are reassured that goodness still exists. He is a home for many weary hearts. He is a hug for many souls in need of understanding.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put